You definitely started your career a couple of decades back, I think fair to say.
This trade really keeps you thinking, and that's one of the reasons I like to work with the young guys.
What are some of the things that you saw work well that you think other folks should keep in mind?
I was always around tools, always fixing things.
What are some of the things you would tell yourself from the vantage point of today?
Stick with it, believe in yourself. It's going to be bad days, but there's a lot of good days in the trades.
Hey guys, welcome to The Dispatch, where job site legends get the mic. Join me every other Thursday as I sit down with the biggest names in the trades to find out what's really happening to keep America running. So whether you're on the road or in the garage beer in hand, settle in for a great conversation. I'm Ryan Prosser, and this is The Dispatch. Welcome back to The Dispatch, where job site legends get the mic. Today we're joined by the HVAC dad. You might know him online as HVAC Animation. With over 34 years in the trades, he's a licensed electrician, certified in refrigeration, gas, and oil, and a true veteran. He's done it all. Thank you for being on the show.
Hey, good evening.
All right, well, welcome to The Dispatch. So for folks that don't know, can you give us a little background on yourself?
Was one of those guys that was in high school and didn't know what I wanted to do in life. And the opportunity came up to join the trades. So basically finished high school on the Friday and started work on the Monday and haven't looked back since. So I started in the electrical trade and did that for about 10 years. And then it was just kind of a natural progression to go into the refrigeration side. And that's where I've kind of sat since then.
So one of the things that we've uncovered in the last few episodes is there's a lot of electrical in HVAC. I think that surprises people. I know that's your background. Can you talk a little bit about like the advantage that gave you in those early days?
Yeah, for sure. It's a huge part for the troubleshooting when you get into ladder diagrams and trying to diagnose what component isn't working. Like when I was doing the electrical stuff, I was in the building automation department as well. That helped out a lot because now systems, obviously there's a lot of automation control, just the wiring in general of components, and like I had a very strong knowledge of the ladder diagrams before I even started the refrigeration.
So, I don't want to date you without your permission on this show, age you without permission, but you definitely started your career a couple of decades back, I think fair to say. Like, as you think back, am I correct? You probably started in the 80s, I'm guessing, late 80s?
89, class of 89 is when I graduated. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
It was a prime vintage.
So, in the 80s.
When you say graduated high school on a Friday, started on a Monday, like, talk to me about getting started with, I don't know, like, I think about that's probably not going to be the most well-trained guy ever, right? In those early days, I'm guessing there was some learning on the job and so forth. Or maybe you got training in high school. What did it look like for you?
I went to a really small high school, so there was no shop classes, but my father was an auto mechanic in his earlier years. My brother was a small engine mechanic, so I was always around tools, always fixing things, throughout my childhood. We basically, if we had a snowmobile that we wanted to ride, we basically had to fix it and get it working, and the bicycles and that kind of thing would always be breaking. We'd figure it out, so I was always around tools, so that was an easy thing for me.
And I'm talking with you previously, I know you mentioned that your sons have kind of followed you into the space. What does that look like when you observed the training they went through and some of the onboarding in early days and so forth? Like, compare and contrast their experience versus what you went through several decades prior.
With my youngest son, he got a lot of training in the high school. Now they both did as well. But my youngest was in this OYAP program, which is OYAP, Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program. So they basically give you a kickstart into the trades. So you get your first year of schooling and just extra training that you can get through the high school. So I think anytime the kids can get more learning in the high school, give them a little bit more overview and just give them a taste of the trades, so they know what things are and get the love for the trade. Versus when I went through school, it was kind of the dumb kids went through trades was kind of the notion back then, and I think now we're kind of proving it otherwise.
So, Shawn, a follow-up question for you on the program that your son went through, just purely from the vantage point of a dad that was observing it. What were some of the things that you thought worked well in terms of a young person getting into the trades? And I ask because a decent part of our audience is folks that are kind of at a transitional phase that are beginning to explore. Would this be a good fit for me? Learning a little bit more about it. Yeah, so I'm just curious, like, what are some of the things that you saw work well that you think other folks should keep in mind?
Yeah, it was definitely an advantage because they give you your basic schooling. When you go to an actual company to look for a job after high school, you're already indentured as an apprentice. So it's for the company, they don't have to worry about trying to sign you up with Skilled Trades Ontario or anything like that. So it's definitely gives you a kind of a leg up when you go looking for a job, a full-time job.
And kind of pivoting now to your experience in the trades, one of the things I enjoyed talking with you about before is, when folks have been out there and been in their craft, whatever it is, for a while, that those are the guys that accumulate stories. What are some of the F ups, pardon my French, that you've seen over the years, that you've been a part of? I know you were mentioning one in particular that, pretty spicy, but it ended well. But, like, what can you tell us from a couple of decades out there in the front lines?
Oh, I mean, you're always making mistakes. um, flooding rooms, components you miswire, blowing up a transformer, or even problems where you don't realize what the problem is, but you replace the board and you find out there's something else behind the scenes that caused the first board to blow.
Well, I'd love to hear a specific story. You mentioned flooding a second ago. Like, give me an instance of a time where, it was like, oh my God, am I going to be able to pull this off?
So I was cleaning cooling towers inside a room, and there was two cooling towers, and I had to switch over from one to the other. The building operator said, when you're ready, come get a hold of me and we'll switch it over. But I was confident, felt I knew what I was doing, which I did, but the problem is the back check valve didn't hold. So when I turned on the other one, it backfed through the sump and flooded the room pretty bad. And the operator comes running upstairs when the floor 2 floors below was complaining about water coming in, and here I am just squeegeeing water down the drain. So I mean, I had to own up to it. There's not much I can do. It was me. So that was
I like this idea of had to own up to it. What guidance would you give to younger techs that make a mistake, potentially a colossal one, and need to face the music, so to speak?
Yeah, it's never easy. I mean, you're always worried whether you're going to get fired or anything like that. But sometimes being honest will, give you more grace. Because that operator definitely, once we got everything sorted out, at the end of the day, came back to me and said, "Hey, I gave you credit for owning up to it." And obviously, I said I had a squeegee in my hand. What was I going to say? And he explained that so many people would do that and just be like, "No, it wasn't me. I came up in the room and I saw the water. Thought I'd be a nice guy and squeegee it down the drain." But
I'm curious to hear your take on customer relationships more broadly. So you mentioned in that case, like just doing the honorable thing, which I always respect, paid dividends. Sometimes it doesn't. That's why it's called doing the right thing. Otherwise, it would just be the easy thing. But as you've been in this business and navigated the business side of the business, what can you tell folks about, lessons learned about building and maintaining the business relationship, not just the technical execution piece of it?
yeah, I bring that up with the young guys all the time. Is trying to build that relationship with the customer, because a lot of times there be service calls, and I'll call them up and say, "Hey, Joe can be here today, or you can wait for me. I can be there tomorrow because I'm tied up." And a lot of times they'll wait for me, but when they call in the office, they want someone right away. And a lot of that's from the relationship you build up and the trust, and they know that when I show up, it's going to be done. It's going to be done right. And I make sure I check in with the customer, I check out with the customer, give them a heads up of what's going on, and I really don't try and hide anything, and I think that goes a long way.
This episode is brought to you by FieldMind, built for the hands that keep America running. FieldMind gives your field service techs ready access to technical documentation, service history, and your team's best tribal knowledge right where they are, in the field. FieldMind is the tool for field service techs. Learn more at fieldmind.com. One of the things that I've noticed in my business over the years is, it's the small things a lot of times, asking about a person, learning about their, whole situation, and just, remembering some of the preferences and the details and the pets' names, and not in a gimmicky way, just in a, I care enough that, the whole story matters to me. Has that been your experience that, latching on to some of these smaller details, I hate to say it in a cheesy way, but to show that you care is the kind of thing that produces lasting relationships in your experience?
Yeah, for sure. I used to, back in the Palm Pilot days, long before the phones, I would make notes of my customers who had cottages, that kind of thing. So when I was talking to them, it would be like, hey, you're going to spend the weekend at the cottage, or, I would make little notes about things they had talked to me about, and even a coffee order where I would, call them up and say, hey, I'm on the way to your building, can I bring you a double-double? Or, and I would already know what coffee they drank. So it adds that little personal touch and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's funny, when I get, I don't know, tons of websites will be like, what's your birthday? And we'll send you a note on your birthday. And I'm always like, I don't want some website sending me something on my birthday. It's automated. I know there's no human in the loop. It feels so impersonal. And yet, when my actual birthday happens and I get this email, it does feel kind of a little bit nice. It's nice to be recognized. It's nice to, even though I know no human being it was in any way involved in that. For example, my kids like McDonald's. What am I going to do? So my kids like McDonald's, and the app says, what is your birthday? And on your birthday, we're going to send you a little special treat, whatever. And it seemed so cheesy, but I put my birthday. I think they make you when you sign up for that. And then when it's my day, I was like, thanks, Ronald McDonald. That means something. And I just,
back.
Yeah, I don't know. And again, I know that this is cheesy. It's the mega Borg. It's not some human, but then when it's a guy like you, that's, it's the personal touch. I don't know. I find that those are the business relationships that mean something, where the person's name, the person knows you, they remember some of these details, and that when your house is in trouble, or, HVAC goes out in the middle of July and it's hot, and the baby can't sleep, Shawn and his guys have got your back. Shawn. Shawn's been to your house. His guys have been in your house. That kind of personal touch, I imagine, goes a long way in your business.
Yeah, the company I work for is big on that. So we have the customers. It's primarily commercial, but the customers, the building managers, that kind of thing, they call me directly versus the office. So most times, I'll be the first call before the office, and that's just the way the original owners were just built the business, because a lot of the customers that we have now, when Rico, one of the owners, was back on the tools, these guys that are customers now, they were just like the day porters, we called them back then, in the building. So they would switch out lights, ballasts, and that kind of thing. So then they've moved up, but Rico was friendly to them, would buy them a coffee. So then they got up to building manager, then they're property managers. Now they're portfolio managers, and giving us more and more and more buildings, just because of the relationship they had with one of the owners 35, almost 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I mean, the ROI on the coffee from 30 years ago is unbelievable. Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure that's not even why he was doing it. Just trying to do the right thing, build a relationship. So for listeners on audio, they can't see this, but for folks tuning in to the video, our shirts look almost identical. We look like we could be co-workers today, except you have a very prominent logo on your chest. I remember talking about this last time. Tell us about this logo.
Yeah, it was my daughter drew it years ago on a Father's Day card. So it was just kind of a hand drawn thing that she made for me. He, there's just an HVAC guy with a blue shirt and blue pants on, and he's basically kind of juggling fire and ice. So when I started up my Instagram page, I decided that'd be the logo to use. So
I love it. Juggling fire and ice just like Dad. It's it's the kind of thing that I have some young kids. I have as of the recording of this show today, they're 9 and 5, and but I don't know, for people listening later, they'll be older. But here in 2025, that's their current age. It's a fun age, and my son, he made me a coffee cup. Probably every dad has got some version of that at some point, the ashtray, the coffee cup, whatever. And it got smashed to smithereens, probably 8 different pieces. And, and everyone was, oh, it's too bad. And man, I'm telling you, I put probably every bit of 2 hours into gluing that mug back together, because I think as dads, everybody, moms always get the limelight. They're the ones, the athletes say, hi, Mom, and that's earned. That's totally earned. But dude, dads, like, for all the kids out there, let me just tell you, if you're below a certain age and you still consider yourself a kid, your dad probably still owns the thing that you gave him all those years ago. Because, every dad I talk to. And so anyway, I glued this thing back together. It is the most Frankenstein cup. It doesn't hold liquids well. I've gone through and reglazed it a few times to try to get it watertight again. But I think all that's happening now is I'm drinking Gorilla Glue. With, it's like 8 parts coffee, 1 part Gorilla Glue at this point. But, anyway, I wanted to ask about your logo, because as dads, like, that's what makes the world go round, man. Your kids do something and you're like, yeah, dude, I don't need some graphic design firm. I've got this, and that's a kick-ass logo.
I have a lot of graphic design guys hit me up on Instagram, and they're like, hey, we'll build you a new logo. And it's like, nah, this one kind of means something to me. I think I'll stick with this one.
Your handle is HVAC Dad, right? I think we said that at the top of the show. So, HVAC Dad has got to have a kid-made logo, dude. That's like right on brand. So we're kind of heading up towards the wrap of the episode here, but you've been around the block a little bit. I've been around the block a little bit. Some of these younger guys, I ask them what they would tell their younger self, but they still are their younger self. So that is its own interesting question. But I am curious, what if you could think back all those years to the version of you just coming out of high school? What are some of the things you would tell yourself from the vantage point of today?
Probably, stick with it. Believe in yourself. It's going to be bad days, but there's a lot of good days in the trades. And it's definitely worth it, I believe, in the end. And, one thing I try and tell guys is I've got some of my best experience from some of the worst locations. So if you're in a bad place or a bad situation, a bad room, that's, sometimes where you learn the most. And that'll stick with you. Anything you can learn from the older guys, just try and remember, because if you're servicing a piece of equipment at 3 o'clock in the morning, that's when you want to remember those little tips of what that old guy told you.
Yeah, it's funny, hearing you say, listen to the older guys. One of the common themes that we've heard in the last few episodes is, it could be a bit hit and miss if the older guys even want to invest in the younger guys. I'm curious the extent to which that's been your observation as well. We've heard from some of the younger guys, they feel like, hey, it could be a little bit difficult to unpack the knowledge from some of these guys. Like, they don't want to invest. They don't, they're not as willing to share. Has that been your observation as well?
Well, I think with anything, there's good and bad teachers. Lots of times you'll hear of a guy working with one of the younger guys, and he's like, oh, he's no good because he didn't ask any questions. But I kind of mentioned him, like, listen, it's up to you to train him. Like, did you ask him any questions about anything that you're doing? Like, hey, do you understand what I'm doing here? Or do you want to know more about this? And if they don't engage, then, that's kind of their own thing. They don't want to learn. But I think as the journeyman, it's up to me to try and, show these guys what they need to know, things that are important. Safety's number one. And, sometimes they're just shy and they're afraid to ask questions because sometimes it can be real intimidating. And if you start the conversation, in my most times I found that'll really kind of get them learning. You can see the kids that really want to learn, but are just afraid to ask.
Totally. So I want to ask, I don't know if I'm going to say this question exactly right. Okay, so just give me some grace if it didn't come out exactly correct. But, I think you and I are approximately same age, and I don't know, and I'm curious if you do, when I went from being the younger guy to the older guy, because I don't remember it being a day where I was drinking a beer and I was like, yep, and now I'm the guy that is older and knows shit. I don't know, to some extent I still feel like the young guy that doesn't know anything, but I can first of all, I got my hair cut today and I scooped some of the hair off my lap, and looked at it, and it is all white. I look like Bob Barker. I'm like, what in the world is going on? For people watching on video, this is all AI. My hair is shock white in real life. And so, do you remember a point, maybe it was when you had kids, where it's like, and I'm the old guy now? Was there a moment where you realized that was happening? Maybe your kids were asking you questions and you knew the answers or something?
I don't know. There's a point. It's such a gradual thing. Sometimes you just feel like all of a sudden you're the old guy, but then the young guys will come up with these new ideas and all this stuff for training, and sometimes you feel like the young guy because there's so much to learn and technology changes so much. This trade really keeps you thinking, and that's one of the reasons I like to work with the young guys, because they're in school and they're bringing up these things that they've heard, and even though it still ties to the basic refrigeration cycle, there's just new ways of doing things, new products, new tools. Just been enjoyable the whole time. Like it seems like I'm still learning the same as when I first started.
That's what keeps you coming back, right?
For sure, yeah.
All right. Well, Shawn, we'd love to have you back on the show. Unfortunately, that is a wrap for today. Thank you so much for being on the program.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great.
And thank you for listening. Join us next time as we meet with another frontline tradesman out there doing their thing. Thanks for listening to The Dispatch. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with a friend in the field.